Now, we often want to work with percentages, and there's a couple of ways that you can create percentages, and they give you quite different results. So I want to demonstrate this. First of all, in an earlier video, we looked at a function called divide, which is very good for dividing a numerator by a denominator. So I want to, first of all, create a new measure that uses the divide function that divides the total sales measure by the total sales for all countries. So I'm going to right-click the Internet Sales query and create a new measure. This new measure is to be called percent of total. Equals, shift enter, and I'm going to use the divide function. My numerator, if I hit square bracket, is total sales, comma, my denominator, if I press square bracket, is total sales all countries, and then I close the bracket. So it's going to divide the total sales measure by the total sales for all countries, and I press enter. So that will give me a percentage, especially if I now go to my measure tools and format that measure, which I've got selected in my fields pane, format it as a percentage. Now let's add that to our table and see the result. And so here's the result there, where it's grabbed the total sales, and it's got a filter context, so the total sales from Australia, divided by the total sales all countries, which doesn't have a filter context. It uses the all function. Even if I click here, total sales all countries removes all filters, so it's the total sales for all countries, whereas the total sales actually has a filter context because it's actually just the sum function. And so that's great. We can see Australia's 30.86, Canada's 6.74, contributing towards 100% of the total sales. Now let's look at creating a percentage another way. I'm going to add total sales to my values bucket again. So I drag and drop in my values bucket, and there it is there. Now I hit the drop down here because I want to use the option show values as, and I want percentage of the grand total. And so here I see the exact same figures, but derived in a completely different way. So now let's see how they differ. I'm going to add a slicer, and it's going to be for country. So I'll just click away from my matrix. I'll go to my visuals pane and click the slicer button. There it is there. I then want to go to my sales territory query, and I want to grab the country. Let me just move this over a little bit so I can see, and drop it on the slicer. And then I'll move this back over a bit so you can see. Okay, and I can resize it, and there it is there, even if I stretch it a little bit. Okay, so the whole idea now is that if I was to filter out a particular country or two, I want to see what this does to my matrix. So I'm clicking on Australia, I'm holding the control key, and I'm clicking on Canada. Now what happens to our values? What we see here is that the show values as percentage of grand total is actually dividing the total of 100% between Australia and Canada, whereas the measure is remaining true to this is the percentage that Canada and Australia contributed towards 100%. So you can see the results are quite different, and it's really important to design your percentage the way that you want to represent your data. So I'll just remove the filters from Canada and Australia, and I'm back to seeing the same results. So think about how you want to work out your percentages. Do you want it to show you the true percentages of the total sales, or are you wanting to divide the total sales between whatever countries you happen to have filtered? And again, I can clear the filter.